Welcome back to NTV Tonight. Now, if you've traveled to an African country, perhaps you're familiar with just how expensive it is to make a call back home. It gets even more complicated if your business tries scaling to other African countries. On this episode of On the Money, NTV's Brian George spoke to the ICT Authority CEO on the plan to harmonize Africa tech policy to allow expansion of businesses and for ease of telecommunication.
Africa has made significant steps with tech innovation. Startups are receiving humongous amounts of money in funding and the like. Why then is it important and urgent, I must mention, to harmonize legal frameworks for African tech at this time?
If a tech startup want to scale, for example, from Kenya to Nigeria or to South Africa or to Ghana, they have to comply to the local laws and regulations, which then, becomes too tedious and expensive for these people to scale. And I think the investors are now starting to realize that the fragmented nature of the African market is a hindrance to growth. And this is why it is important for the African continent to start thinking about harmonization of regulations, harmonization of technology-related laws and policies. And I think we have already started doing that. If you look at AU, for example, the African Union Commission, there has been a number of strategies and a number of policies that have been proposed to address this issue. But the issue of cross-border data and regional integration, especially on digital platforms, remain significant. And we think that digital platforms will provide a quicker way of harmonizing this particular taxation and regulations when it comes to doing business in Africa.
While we stay on cross-border tariffs and with regard to data and telecommunications, a huge part of families' income goes into supporting telecommunications, tech and internet access needs. I'd give an example. If a family, for example, in Kenya earns about 80,000 Kenya shillings, compared to other markets, that is about $650 thereabout every month. And they're paying, say, $40 towards internet costs and data needs. This is on average. It could be more. That already borders towards 10% of that family's income. How do we bring this down significantly while still maintaining the quality in terms of BPS and the bandwidth?
If you look, for example, at calls, because you've talked about telecommunication. Yeah. Today, if you travel to North Africa, you'll be surprised at how expensive it is to make a call back home. We know that harmonization and opening up cross-border integration can go a long way, and we have tried it here in East Africa. If you look at when we established the East Africa one area network, we had a significant drop in telephone calls, which led to a big surge in voice traffic, which eventually drove profitability of the telecom operators. But that has not happened across the entire continent, and this is a big hindrance not only for communication but also for business. When you go to the other aspects of connectivity, you will realize that Africa is fairly served by undersea cables. I think we have about 77 undersea cables landing into Africa. Out of the 38 countries that have a seashore, 37 of them have actually at least one cable landing into Africa. But the cost of internet is still very high.
Compared to where?
Compared to other continents like Europe.
Yeah.
And secondly, we still continue to face internet outages because each country is only relying on the cables that have landed into them. So we have not been able to build proper redundancy for the African continent. And that's why you saw last year we had a big problem in part of Africa when we had the undersea cable cut in South Africa. So we need to look at telecommunication and how to break this barrier through cross-border, data sharing, and then also the issue of connectivity. And I think connectivity still remains the foundational issue for us to close the digital divide. It is almost unimaginable that in the same continent, you have a country like Morocco, which has over 90% internet penetration. And then you have some countries like Chad and our neighbors here in Burundi with less than 15% internet penetration. Yet, the neighboring countries around those countries can be able to share the infrastructure that they have to benefit and open up those countries.
Let's crystallize down to Kenya. We have an AI strategy out. How do we optimize it in terms of ethics and regulatory action to enable as much adoption as possible?
We cannot underestimate the power of AI across all sectors. And I think we have been able to see, even for us as government, as we deploy systems, the power of AI in collecting citizen data, for example, analyzing and trying to understand what our citizens want and the kind of service that they want. But you are saying the issue of AI governance does not only apply to the people providing the solution. Yeah. It also applies to the consumers. It also applies to the developers and everybody else, in the ecosystem. And it is our hope that over time we can be able to have this strategy now move into policy and maybe some high-level, regulations around AI.